Well, hello there, everyone. Here to show you right here is the President's Day 2020 activity right here, and basically talks about the for the year 2020, and 2 years or so from now, and be around election time, and you're talking about for the follow up from President's Day 2018, and yeah, that you're based on for what President Trump was talking about, and but still that looking back at the past history of these presidents, and I have right here is Ronald Reagan and President Reagan, and I was if anybody were warned to where yeah, that were you thinking about maybe at some point if you want to go ahead and do a painting on Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, and at the time that we were too that any paintings that anything that I'm able to work with, and just thinking necessarily to where that whenever I'm working with a certain president that that I'm also thinking is to where to go ahead and work one on I worked yeah that I worked a couple of them, Barack Obama, and I have worked one on Bill Clinton. But if anybody is waiting from to see some maybe some work and the results for Jimmy Carter, and so yeah, that thinking necessarily to worry about these presidents though. Whenever you have a president, it's going to come on TV, and I can remember that but. You have right here is for Ronald Reagan right here, and then you have right here his example right here of like if I was going to be in on the television set watching the president's speech, and talking about that for anything that is related to and anything that is basically related to watching the president on TV, and if anybody wanted to worry, watching the president on TV. And even though if he's going to be interrupting your favorite TV show just to make a speech about something. And I know that, that how many of us would have the local stations to where that whenever you're going to be watching a certain program and then, there's an interruption, the president's going to be on TV, talking about something. And I know that, like nowadays that a lot of TV programs that, if you're watching something and then it's like interrupted, but still nowadays it's since you can stream a lot of videos and movies even from a mobile phone, that you would have that option to where you can watch TV programs and documentaries by streaming videos, but talk about with the president though. A lot of things that I have seen, I use this right here as an example right here of a president, but a lot of the times what I see from these presidents though is that that a lot of times it seems like that they're always talking about past presidents, that the presidents that for whenever that they were in office, that the promises that they made, and then the work that still needed to be done. And sometimes it seems like, that whenever you hear about between the Democrat and Republican parties, because back whenever I was very young, that, a lot of it seemed like it didn't really make any sense. And I know I had government class back whenever I was younger, but just thinking necessarily to her that, okay, government class, that's basically a class that you take it for that related to the study and understanding about the three basic rights. And I'm sure that if anybody here can remember that they had it in high school or maybe part of middle school. But back whenever I was too young, whenever I was not even old enough to vote, and so if anybody were to ask me that those couple years ago that, if you're not a registered voter, well then what's taking you so long? But I'm like, really, that, so yeah, how many of us have had that to where that somebody's going to ask a question, and sometimes it's like, it really don't really make any sense unless if you ask. Unless if you ask that question, some kid's going maybe ask you, is like, are you registered voter yet? Like, no, I'm not old enough, or that. But let's just say if you move from another state, and then chances are that you got to wait a while just to be registered. But how many kids that may wonder to where how come purple is not in the American flag? Yeah, you got the red, white, and blue, but you just don't have purple. And purple, Yeah, I can go ahead and color it in right there as a little bit like, purple carpet. Purple carpeting right there. If I were to be sitting in front of the television set right there. Yeah, purple carpeting. So if anybody were wanted to wear, yeah, purple, yeah, purple is in the rainbow, but how come it's not on the American flag? Well, you see that in the sky, don't you? Like, I know, well, American flag, I guess that's not really made out of rain, is it? Yeah, that's really made out of, if you want to call it like, it's made out of, say 100% cotton, or it is, but still. So yeah, you got right here is the President Trump, and but still so blue eyes right there, but anyway, but talking about for being a registered voter though, that back whenever I was young, that if anybody say that what presidents do you remember appearing on TV besides you see those on the websites that you see that you from President Kennedy, and then you also have Richard Nixon, and sometimes though that you're around President's Day that I do one or two that some of these presidents that you've heard about, maybe two of them that only ran for one term. They were only in office for one term, and sometimes it's somebody that may ask about that as to where that they lost the election by so many delicate, I guess if you want to call it that, so many votes, between the Democrat and Republican parties. But I remember that, whenever I was in government class, that I didn't really, read too much about between the Democrats and Republicans. So it sounded like to me, just a little bit like, that whenever if you're going to be a registered voter going out to go vote on President's Day, that you're going to be voting for the Democratic Party, and then if it's a Libertarian Party or any party like that, and thinking necessarily to where that that nobody can really put words in your mouth saying that whenever you go out and vote, that's supposed to be your opportunity to go out and vote. So just thinking about this, I'm not trying to draw a mustache right there. I'm actually trying to draw the lips right there. So if anybody say President Trump don't really have a mustache, but you have right there trying to draw some more of the drawing right there. But you have right here for President's Day of 2020 by year 2020. So just think about that with Ronald Reagan right there. That you have these presidents right here, and you have talking about from back on the last post, knowing about who was going to be elected, for the 45th president, and just one or two that with these presidents though, that if it was maybe part of my class assignment, if anybody say that if you got a test the next morning, then they would anybody would suggest that they don't stay up late, because at the time I'm like one or two that. If the president is going to give a State of the Union address, and let's just say if it don't come on until about 8, 9 o'clock or so at night, and just thinking if you got a test the next morning, that but still, that with these president speeches though, that maybe that they were not able to talk about everything, or maybe mention a few other things as well, but let's just say if the case was as to where that you were watching the president's speech on TV, and it's like, and then this president is going to start talking about a president who was in office from before. So I don't really remember, of course, that was before my time, whenever Jimmy Carter was president. So if anybody were warned to where that you have these past presidents that want to talk about, previous presidents, about the history of the presidents, and you're likely thinking as to where that with Ronald Reagan, and if it's going to be so far if it's Kennedy, and then the vice presidents also, I'm like we one or two this toward that vice presidents, quite a few of the vice presidents are going to be like while they're in office, and some of them are just going to be kind of like what you call off to the side, that they're just what you call like like a backup president, and so yeah, that it's talk about his understanding about these presidents, but talk about for the vice presidents, and so you're just like thinking as to where that whenever I was reading about the vice presidents, though, it was almost like as to where that okay, vice presidents, that those are the commander in chiefs that are basically that they are there, but they're not really if they're there really to fulfill the position to where that the president is on vacation while the vice president is there at the White House. But I don't think that that's really the case. So if anybody wanted to word it, that while the president, maybe while the president is on vacation, that the vice president is there at the White House, taking care of stuff, and necessarily thinking as to where that you're talking to the American people and want to know about, okay, if those who are not registered voters, what's taking you so long? Because you should have been registered and but really that since I was 16, though, that I have registered, and just think about this, about President's Day, though, that whenever I use, if I can remember right, I watched Bill Clinton, President Clinton on TV those couple of times, and if he was telling everybody, that making a speech to the American people to go out and go vote or something, and so whenever a president that comes on TV or maybe on the radio, it basically means that they're talking to anybody who's listening. But I do one or two that at the time it's like the president doesn't really make a speech really quickly, such as that you must be 18 or older, to register, or that you must have an accurate driver's license, and so that back whenever you were only about maybe 11 years old, that you were just thinking too necessarily to where that okay, driver's license, okay, it is. So and I know that questions that you would be asked to, and sometimes you're like wondering to where I don't understand what you're asking me, that source of situation, but let's just say the point goes by as to where that one of the difficulties I had during the time was understanding about maybe a little bit in accounting as well as the credit card, but let's just say if I was sitting on the floor right here, after playing a video game, and I know the way I drew this TV right here is like one of the newer the newer HD style type televisions, but then besides those old those older model television sets, and watching the president on TV, and let's just say after about maybe an hour playing a video game, and then you turn the game off, and then you seen the president on TV, and he starts talking about health insurance, or maybe about children's education, and it could also maybe be about a war that's going on, or maybe a bill that they're trying to pass or something like that. So whenever I watch these president speeches, that sometimes though that kind of gives me an idea about for what president that gives the other president, the former presidents, credit for while they were in office, while this president was in office, to give them credit for the work that they did, but sometimes that this president is going to start criticizing it, and that you're going to maybe have some of the Republicans that are going to be like, whenever Jimmy Carter was president, he promised a lot of change, and but still that sometimes though it seems like Jimmy Carter. I'm like, it seems like the question kind of goes by as to where that with these former presidents, that whenever that they're elected our president, that these are the changes that they said they were going to make. And out of those changes, it could also be as to where that they promised to lower taxes. That ain't going to happen, because that's from the past 15 years or so, we've had presidents that said that they were going to lower taxes and make the child care, or daycare expenses more affordable or something, or maybe a cost of automobile industry, and maybe job growth, about jobs, and as well as our national security. And I do wonder too that why is it that quite a few presidents that don't mention about the use of the internet nowadays. I was whenever I watched the State of the Union address, I was kind of wanting to know about what the president had to say about making sure our American people were safe on the internet. But I didn't hear no mention about that. If anything, it was about vocational school or something. But I tell you one thing though, that whenever we file our taxes for this year, for 2017, that I do one or two is to where that for any of us who do have jobs, to where we got if it's children that we got to take care of, and maybe who have loans they're trying to pay off, or maybe credit cards, and maybe trying to get mortgages taken care of and squared away, anything like that. But I do one or two is to where that whenever you if we can place a vote on all that stuff, at the time that you one or two is to where that is anybody going to get mad at you if you vote against a bill that for Proposition B, one of those votes is going to maybe be about is to lower taxes for the products such as to where for automobile industries, and just to be able to improve the heating sources, and maybe for satellite images, or maybe for the use of Google Earth or something like that. So yeah, that some of the questions whenever I go vote, some of the questions that I remember that were asked is toward that, do you think that they should charge the American, do you think that they should raise our taxes for, and then sometimes though I kept thinking as to where that, why are you asking me for? I don't make the rules. But I guess, whenever you go out and vote, I guess it's basically, you are speaking up for, for the amount of votes that are counted. And I was also saying too, from the previous post, to talk about how many of these presidents have a college degree. How many of these presidents have a college degree, and let's just say if some of them only have an associate's degree. I'm like President Reagan. I'm like some of these former presidents that maybe not all of them have a college degree, and some parents out there that might say, I don't have a college degree. I don't know why my children want to get a college degree, because it's not required to be hired for a certain job. But still though, that and I know I answered this a couple of times, but I don't know if anybody, according to their understanding, that they gotten other source of feedbacks. But my reason, of course, is that you're for a higher level of education, because I know based on from my previous years of my education that if you had to retake a class, or maybe if you had to the similar, maybe some work that was easier, but then you want to take a course because it was harder. You want to learn something whenever it got harder. So yeah, that having a college degree takes you on a new level. And I guess it seems like to where that how else can I really explain it other than it takes you on a new level, and that level is going to be harder and challenging. And there are going to be some presidents going to maybe say the first thing they're going to say is to where, I don't have a college degree, and the college degree is not required. And we might say that our children can make their own decisions about where they want to take their education, as long as they're handling it as best they can. But how many of our U.S. presidents have a college degree? And I can maybe tell the presidents too that, Mr. President, I've checked all the job ads, and there's a lot of them. If you don't have the right degree, then you are basically in that situation to where that you need to continue your education. And I know a lot of these jobs nowadays, you're coming up within the next 2 years from now, a lot of these jobs nowadays are going to ask for a good source of education. What level of your education is it? Is it you'll be 4th or 5th level? And I guess if that means is to where you're right above a bachelor's or above close to a master's degree. So you have these presidents that might say something about that, to where that most of our children, they can make their own decisions. But just think as to where that maybe not everybody is going to have a college degree. But let's just say though that if we were to place a vote about knowing about what degree should be affordable, about the cost of the books, how many of us will maybe agree as to where that the cost of the books is too expensive, Mr. President? In order to be able to read and understand, just to be able to get a good IQ score, that the books are too expensive. And what about student vouchers? That a lot of things that our former presidents have mentioned before, and when we think about President's Day, that are we going to maybe be thinking about is to where that to remember all of them, and then also to be thinking about is to where that with our future though is to where that whenever we're talking about the United States of America though, that whenever I watch these presidents, that sometimes though that if anybody were to say that you got a test that's due on you got a test that you got to take on Monday, and you can't be up late on Sunday night. So let's just say, the State of the Union address, usually between a Monday and Tuesdays about each year that those come on, but just think about whenever the president's going to be on, and you'll likely say is to where to show some respect and just to kind of listen to what they got to say. And, even if it's Secretary of the Treasury, or if it's a Secretary of State, or if it's the chair, or anybody who's speaking, at the White House or somewhere that then start talking to you about something, emails especially. I can tell anybody here, emails especially. If I'm on my computer trying to read an email that's very important, and let's just say if I get interrupted about the president's speech, the president has announced to the American people about something important, that you need to read about, and maybe if it is related to our taxes, that we could be overpaying, for health insurance or something like that, and something that's that all the American people need to pay attention about. But really, that how many of us have really gotten into that advertisement to where that you had to upgrade to a new television set or something like that, you're American people, the American children, all American families. I'm just letting you know that, if you're watching me on a new, you need to upgrade to a new television set or something like that. So you're likely thinking as toward that, it's things that are recommended and things that are required, but still that talk about with President's Day, that whenever the president comes on TV, a couple of times, and I'm like, that whenever Bill Clinton was president, he made all the kids go to school on a Saturday, just that one day, and you're likely thinking as to where that, did you respect the president for that, or the fact about that, whenever you have a president on TV, do you want to kind of say, boo, well, I didn't want to hear that, or exactly, spring break. That I can, if I can remember right, I don't recall one time to where I heard the president saying is to where that the kids aren't getting a one full week spring break. They're only getting maybe a 4-day spring break or something, or whichever it is. And but still though, that let's just say that the case is to where that president's decisions, I guess, if they make all the decisions or whenever they come on TV. That it just seems like as to where that you want to kind of ask yourself that question to where that if you had to go to a job interview at a certain time, or maybe if you're in a meeting, that why should you take so much 10 or 15 minutes of your time just to watch the president talk? And he might ask as to where to get get the American people's attention. The president's going to come on the radio and he's going to be announced on our phones, and he's going to be announced, even in the newspaper. And so you're likely thinking as to where that, maybe you may not be able to remember all these presidents, but sometimes, though, that I also keep thinking, too, that with the president, whenever the president's going to come on TV, that sometimes I also keep thinking, too, as to where should I pay attention to that, because if you got a test that's coming up, shortly, or it's something about, that you got to work, you got to take care of something else that's important. But I also keep thinking, too, that, thinking about, for the, presidents that nowadays is to where thinking about our country especially, and if it's president of a company, that with these presidents, if it's a history project especially, that even though if the presidents are going to interrupt your program, and maybe that there's a situation that comes up to where that if you are dismissed from having to take a test, the finals work is coming up. Yeah, the finals are coming up very shortly, but then now the president is telling the American people that please read this message. There's an important update about our tax reforms that that it needs to be corrected. And so sometimes though, we might be aggravated too that something that comes up maybe with Congress that the American people, those who are registered voters, if you got to pause what you're doing, just to take care of something. And so yeah, that you got a lot of important tasks that you got to take care of. But let's just say though, if the president comes on TV and tells the American people though, but still that yeah, that the day you had to lead the party, yeah, if you were at a dance party, maybe on a Saturday afternoon that you were at a dance party and the president told all the American people that yeah, it's important that you read this email. So back when I was in school, back whenever Clinton was president, that yeah, I thought that was pretty neat to just look at all those emails, and I was getting even from the White House. But you're also thinking too, is to where that Mr. President, are you going to, yeah, are you going to fail me just because that I'm not doing very well on the test? I'm like, so yeah, that it seems like I feel like asking the president that. Is to where how many times am I allowed to fail just to be called a loser or whichever you call it, or maybe if it's anything about is to where that for like President's Day that you okay President's Day that Mr. President that how many times am I allowed to fail before that we're going by the next step. The next step is going to maybe be is to where that I'm not going to be able to go to the party even though if I got an invitation or something like that, But still, we're allowed to have fun when we can. But still, though, that with these presidents, though, that they got a big job that they got take care of, and just think about no matter if you're married with a big family or if you're single, and at the time you're like wanting to, Mr. President, what do you have to say about the single, the single ladies and the single men, and to where they're thinking is to where the things that they got to take care of as well, he or she's got to take care of. But you have right here is this me right here in front of the television set, and yeah, that whenever the president's going to be on TV, that I heard that too about President Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, those presidents who some of them that did the best they could while they were in office. Some of them that may have said that that I promised to. To create jobs and improve our infrastructures and job creations as well as lower our taxes. And that may not have been Jimmy Carter. That could have maybe been George H.W. Bush. And there's other presidents that promised certain things, but still that I'm like, yeah, Jimmy Carter. As anybody say that, yeah, he was before my time. But I tell you one thing, though, that reading about these presidents. That some of them, they lost the election from back during the time of their term, for re-election. But then on your hand, it's like, these presidents, some of them that do the best they can while they're in office, and some of them that, that maybe that things that didn't work out very well, but still, the main focus, I guess, is really about for the American people is to where that, sometimes. No matter if you win or lose, you are still, an American citizen. And, even though if you do lose. And so I guess what's the best ways of how to handle that to where President's Day, President's Day, that the presidents who only served, for one term, the presidents who were not able to do all what they could while they were in office. And just thinking this too, is to where that, does that always make them a bad president? Not really. I'm like, it just, that they did the best that, that president did what they could, while they were on the job, while they were in office. And so that's just a thing about is to whenever we think about the United States of America, that, I think is to whenever you go to school, most, every morning you say the Pledge of Allegiance, and you're also thinking too is to where that, what's the best answer to what to give to our children? And that's something to think about, about the president. That, hey, that, you may feel, I'm like, yeah, just because you fail, and at the time, if anybody say that, why does that sound so much like somebody saying that you're fired? You're fired. That they want to look at it as like a tease, but like for President's Day, though, that for 2020, though, that in 2 years from now, that you have right here is for President Ronald Reagan. I always also think I have right here is the pocket. As they say, there's something in Ronald Reagan's pocket, and then you have right here the variety of colors. But I want to mention that if anybody would say that like a little, maybe a 11-year-old girl is going to maybe ask me, think as to why do you think that that purple is not in the American flag? But you have right here is like, yeah, President Trump maybe on a dollar coin or something. But for President's Day, though, that the important topics to talk about with our kids, though, is to where a job interview that didn't go very well, and you can always say that, well, sorry to hear about that. And I guess that's really the best you can say is to where just because you fail on a test, hey, that happens, that don't mean that you didn't study hard, and you just got to keep working on it. But I guess the best encouragement that we can give to anybody would be is to where, sorry to hear about that. Well, you just keep working on it, and I'm sure you'll have great progress the next time. But as far as presidents go, our future presidents, if you are not a registered voter, and if you're old enough, and if anybody were one or two word that you can vote, whenever you do place a vote, and you're just thinking too is to where that whenever you watch the TV, that sometimes you also keep thinking too is to where those candidates that you did not vote for, the ones that lost the election, and the ones that you did vote for, and like Barack Obama, and as well as you hear about George W. Bush, and as well Bill Clinton, that you have these presidents that you go vote for them, and let's just say if there's a candidate that did not win, and you're also thinking too, but still watching the president on TV, though, and whenever you watch the president's speech, it seems like to where he's got your full attention for the most part. But then on your hand too, it seems like as to where that what is he asking for for all of us to do necessarily? His speech could be broadcast within hundreds of miles away, and thousands of miles away, even to our troops. And it seems like to where that whenever he talks, that maybe he's trying to get all of our attention. And let's just say that if anybody were to say, did you take notes of the president's speech while you were watching the president's speech? Did you go ahead and write down any notes of some kind? Keep on note about, yeah, this is what I want all the American people to do. Listen up, okay? You study hard for the test, okay? And, yeah, you do well in class, and, and so far as taxes, you better pay your taxes, even if it's for a candy bar, yeah. So I'm sure most of us, yeah, President's Day, and you're like, say, President's Day sales, but, still. But, anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and, yeah, a lot to talk about, of course, but, talking about for President's Day of 2020, and have right here is for Ronald Reagan, and knowing about, for the United States of America. Thanks for watching. God bless, and God bless the United States of America, and thanks, and have a great day, everyone.